Fans, welcome to the second Open qualifier of 2024. Coverage brought to you by Running the Rift. We are about to get underway with the first round of matches. To be more specific, here on Channel C, we are going to be viewing a battle between the abandoned Kittens and Purdue University Northwest. My name is Truman. I am joined by the amazing Alls to kick off OQ number 2. How you doing, Alls?
Man, it's a pleasure to be here. It's always fun to be casting NACL OQs, and these are some fun teams. We've got some great teams up and down the rosters of all these 32 teams, even with the different changes in the names, even with the last-minute drop of a couple of teams here, the Pookie Bears in particular. We've got a ton of fun to be had, and Running the Rift with their coverage all across the scene is going to make sure that we can see it all, so it's great to be here.
Absolutely. Big shout outs to, Rare Adam and everybody else who's been organizing the streams here. But without any further ado, I think we can get right into the draft, also.
Yeah, absolutely. It's up on the screen here. Abandoned Kittens on blue, Purdue Northwest on red. Unfortunately, we don't get to see it blow by blow here, but boy, this is some spicy drafting from both of these teams. Starting off with some heavy hitters from ABK. They love that engage.
Yeah, definitely. It is a little bit surprising to me to see that the Varus is prioritized over the Senna that has been so powerful in higher levels of play. But, I guess maybe there's just some individual player comfort could be a factor there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious how you feel about this matchup in the bot lane here, because this is a very aggressive bot from Abandoned Kittens with the Varus, with the Rel. They're really going to want to call down that jungler of the Poppy or Zac, depending on how they choose to assign these lanes, to come down and blow up this very squishy, very passive Senna Seraphine lane that's not going to be able to do much other than poke.
Yeah, definitely. It is an interesting matchup. And as you say, a very aggressive sort of line taken by the abandoned kittens here. It does kind of feel that if the Varus doesn't have a strong early game, if he doesn't have a strong laning phase, they could be a little bit short on damage moving into the mid and later parts of the game.
Anything else here that catches your eye? I mean, I love to see the Zac likely going up into top lane. We've seen Zac top a lot more recently, especially with the rise of Fearless Draft in
Mhm.
this tier 3 level of play, because he's a very good, very tanky top laner that does have a whole lot of utility towards the mid and late game, but into an old stalwart like the Aatrox, how do you feel like that's going to go?
Yeah. Again, it does feel like a little bit of a risk that is being taken here. Clearly the call from the abandoned kittens was they just wanted a little bit more engage, right? They wanted to make sure that they're going to be able to start these fights, when they want to. But and it is always hard, right? Because the top laner on the red side is always going to have that final word, is always going to have that R5 counter pick. So it's hard to really take anything too crazy into that top side. I guess we're at the point now where Zac top isn't too crazy anymore, but it's definitely, I think, a brave choice. I think it's safe to say.
Brave indeed, but brave tends to lead to fun, so glad to see it here on the Rift. Any final thoughts before we jump into the game?
Oh, not really. I mean, I think we are definitely keeping our eyes on the abandoned kittens to have a strong early game here. Is once we get towards those later stages, the Senna, the Azir are going to be such a problem.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, with that being said, I think it's about time for us to hop into the replay and watch this game go down live. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. Moving on in, and away we go here, crewman. I'm not
Absolutely. Are there any runes or summoner spells catching your eye here? Anything that you're going to be keeping a close eye on in the early game?
Yeah, I'm a little bit curious here to see how this jungle matchup goes. Steel City Warrior
Mm.
with the Poppy going with the Phase Rush. So, gonna be a little bit less tanky here, going to be going for those quick trades in and out, but Doubtful on the Xin Zhao has some solid sticking power. Doesn't have the fleet, but with that Wind Becomes Lightning can really get on top of you quite easily. So, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens when they meet up here in the jungle.
Yeah, I think that's a great shout for sure. I was just sort of mentioning how on the side of Purdue, they do have a lot of these scaling options. The Xin Zhao is kind of like the bridge that is going to get them through the early game to the point in the game where those scaling picks are going to be much more of a significant threat, right? So I think that jungle matchup could absolutely be playing a pivotal role here in the early minutes and subsequently, in determining the ultimate result of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. No action here. Level 1, though, just 5 points. These two teams don't want to blow anything here early, although Boner walking in here with Klexo on the back, trying to find a little bit of vision. Won't manage a whole lot, and Crewman, I get it. It's the first round of OQs. You don't want to be in an 0-1 hole early on, but at the same time, a little bit of aggression like what we're seeing from ABK here is certainly not remiss.
This is very aggressive. Yeah, so there is the ward down, of course, from the side of Purdue. So they are going to be able to see exactly when that blue buff does go down. Center just jumping forward, looking to pressure this bot lane back underneath their turret back into the lane. Will be successful in doing so. But the Xin Zhao is not going to be too much delayed. Starting off on those Raptors, will be going directly onto his own red buff. I think from here, though, will be extremely interesting. If we see Steel City Warrior try to cross back over to the other side of the map to try to actually deny the vertical jungling from taking place, or if Doubtful will be able to get down towards that topside blue buff and try and stay even in that individual jungle matchup.
You know, Crewman, I almost feel like they're looking to set up an early level 3 dive here onto Winking and Poner in the bot lane. Because Steel City Warrior has the capacity to knock one of them out of turret range, and the worst possible thing that can happen to one of these aggressive poke lanes that doesn't have a lot of sustain here or ability to match in extended real drag out fights is to fall behind early. If this Senna Seraphine lane doesn't get a couple of early good levels where they can get well ahead of Varus Rel, they're never going to be able to play this game again. And that's exactly what we're seeing here.
Doubtful is on the bottom side of the map. He is right behind Steel City Warrior right now. So if the Poppy does go for the turret dive, it would be a 3v3 underneath the turret. And it's going to be just a little bit too risky for the side of the Kittens to go for. The Poppy will back away, but does have, of course, all of her own jungle camps to farm, which puts Doubtful in a very awkward position right now.
Yeah, you see, they're both making a beeline for that bottom blue side quadrant. Riverside is going to play a little bit of bodyguard here with his own health bar, but this is very dangerous.
Yeah, that's really dangerous for the Talia. Does have the flash try and get away. Will have to use, but the flash follow for Doubtful. Will claim the first blood. Steel City Warrior, though, on the chase should be able to get the kill back, and it is 1-1. But the Xin Zhao going to be able to pick up that extra 100 gold.
That's really huge for PNW here as well. It gives Klexo time to farm, to get a nice back on their own without necessarily needing to use that TP, and Riverside now no TP, no flash, is going to be very vulnerable here and won't be able to get a lot of that roaming potential that Talia wants to have as soon as they hit level 6 here.
Very true. Very, very true. The TP will be mashed up. Oh, that's an engage in the bot lane. Sinner going in with the flip. Going to force the flash out from the Seraphine. Piercing arrow not landing, though, onto the desired target. And here comes Steel City Warrior, though. Will get the flash into the heroic charge, pushing the flashless Seraphine back into the waiting arms of the Varus Rel. And Hope 1 on the Varus will be able to pick up his first of the game.
Well, it may not have been right after that immediate take of the red side jungle there, but still a beautifully executed level 3 dive. Steel City Warrior doing a great job there to ruin the day of this bot lane, and now we see Riverside in trouble once again as Doubtful returns, and this Talia is not having fun.
Of course, no flash for the Talia. It means Riverside had no way out of that one. Doesn't even manage to deny the assist for the Xin Zhao, and now Tiponer in this bot lane forced to flash away as well. So the early game, I think it's safe to say, is going absolutely swimmingly for these abandoned Kittens.
Yeah, but at the same time, that mid lane does have the potential to become a major issue here, Crewman.
True.
If this Azir gets to the point where he can just sit in the backline, let Prank and Doubtful take all of the aggression and just gun through everybody here, yeah, Zac and Poppy are tanky, especially with a Rel in there as well, but it's not enough when all your damage is locked on Hope.
Yeah, it could definitely be, some ins still for the side of Purdue in this game. Of course, it's far from over. And the mid lane, I think, as you were just mentioning, is going to be the main focus for them in their attempts to try and right the ship here and get themselves back into the driver's seat. And like we were also mentioning, coming out of the draft, they do have a lot of options towards the later parts of the game, so I don't think they're really going to be all that concerned at this point in time. They are actually going to be going ahead and starting up this first dragon. It looks like the secure will come through. Steel City Warrior with the Hex Flash, but I don't know if that's going to be enough to get the Poppy into the pit, and it will not be.
No, that's just too dangerous to take. With your bot lane nowhere close, Yeah, you have Riversided, but as we've mentioned, Dactyly is so far behind, going in very aggressively
Yeah.
here with that ultimate. Doubtful is going to curve away here, but I don't think they have enough for the dive, so that's just a wasted ultimate again here, crewman. Just really feels like this mid lane is going to be the tipping point.
Yeah, absolutely. And now even with the Talia committing to try and pick out somebody towards, that bottom side after the dragon had already gone down, Azir's going to be able to shove the wave in mid here. Could get the comfortable reset if he would like, or if he wants to try and use that time to impact one of the side lanes, could be a possibility as well. Oh, it's got actually pretty even here, the push in the mid lane. Never mind.
Yeah, and
I just assumed.
I'm pretty concerned about this jungle as well. Even after all of that early aggression from Steel City, Doubtful has the CS lead. Doubtful is outdoing hand over fist this Poppy in terms of pressure on the map, in terms of CS. Just everything is coming up PNW. And yeah, there's a lot on Hope right now, very far ahead of the Seraphine, but boy, there are some red flags flying high.
Oh, I hope he even gets the Gromp there with the piercing arrow over the
This is
wall,
going to
but
be
the
expensive.
Center will connect. No flash on the Varus, and that's a shutdown over to Doubtful. Huge pickup for the Jin Zhao, who, as you already mentioned, Alls, was pulling ahead of the Poppy. I mean, it's really interesting, right? Because Steel City Warrior was so aggressive in that early game, but didn't really utilize that pressure to create an individual lead for themselves. They were just trying to impact their mid and their bot lane, right? To try and get those players ahead. But the Xin Zhao, as a result, has been able to come back in a big way. And with the shutdown as well, he is going to be actually massively strong in that jungle matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's an argument to be made, that, yeah, Xin Zhao falls off. You don't need to be too worried about Xin Zhao getting ahead. But right now, Doubtful is in a position to just dominate this game with the amount of resources that have been, by hook or by crook, funneled into him. So you gotta start seeing Abandoned Kittens play with a little bit more intention here. I mean, they're doing great in the bot
Sure.
side. Again, caught
Yeah.
onto the center here.
Nice setup from the Rel. Should be an easy lockdown. There it is. Hope picking up kill number 3. Righting the wrongs that we saw just a moment ago as the Varus did get taken down, trying to build up that shutdown once again.
I'd like to see some kind of objective play here. The grubs are available. The Drake gonna be available in 2 minutes. You gotta start putting pressure towards that here for Abandoned Kittens. You can't get too far behind in tempo here. You've got the pressure, at least on the bot side. Seed the grubs, let Steel City Warrior get in for a Drake here. I mean, as you can see, the grubs aren't even going to be available by the time anyone from Abandoned gets up there. So might as well just try and pressure what you can here.
Yeah, Purdue was, of course, able to lock down that first dragon as well. And now with the 3 grubs going over, love to see the team play, by the way. 4 members rallying around that Baron pit to secure those void grubs. Make sure that there was going to be no danger whatsoever for Doubtful going for that objective take. And they are able to lock it down. Does put them in a pretty strong position here. You can see they've actually taken the gold lead at this point as well with the scaling composition. Starting to look a lot more Purdue favorite as we get further into this game.
Yeah, and this is not a matchup that's particularly separated in terms of seeding. Both of these teams were on the bubble in last OQ as well. Abandoned Kittens just barely making it in at 3-2. Purdue fell to Clown, a team that did go out in the first round of the groups. But both of these teams in a similar level of competency here, so it won't be surprising if this game comes down to the wire.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been quite close so far, which we do love to see, of
Oh
course.
no, not
What's
another
this,
dive here.
though?
TP from
Yeah, it's
Riverside
gonna be
as well. This is
4-man.
awful.
Teleport does eventually come in from the Azir as well, but it's a little bit delayed, and the Seraphine's already gone down, and Kalexo immediately teleporting onto the rock is going to get stunned up and flashing over the wall as prays the double teleport to defend for Purdue, and now Sinner will just barely be able to get away from the Emerald Chains, but it's Riverside in trouble as Doubtful dashes forward audaciously. It's going to be stepping forward. Steel City Warrior does manage to get the Keeper's Verdict out onto the Aatrox, does push him away, but it was the Varus that went down on the side of Abandoned Kittens, which should give Purdue control over the area.
Yeah, for all of that to be committed here from Abandoned Kittens, that's 4 ultimates, a ton of summoner spells, and all of that time on the map, and you get 1 kill onto a lane that's already this far behind, that feels so unworth it. And with the loss of control afterwards, they're losing the Drake as well. We see the TP down from the Zac here, but I don't know that this is going to be enough. They're going to be too late here.
Yeah, not even close. It's going to be Purdue easily able to lock that one away. The shove does connect, though, onto the Azir. Does manage to sweep himself out towards safety. The Zac jumping in, trying to find those striking strikes. He's flashing underneath the turret for it. Will get the CC, but it's so deep for Shipping, and they do manage to take down the Azir. But now it's the Zac into the passive. The shove back onto the Xin Zhao. That's 2 kills over to the Kittens. Sinner taking up that turret aggro. Will buy enough time for the Zac Bloblets to reconstitute themselves. And a 2-0 on the back end of that Dragon take. Abandoned Kittens, not saying die just yet.
Yeah, and that's more resources on to Hope now, already at an item and a half. No one from this bot lane on Purdue is even close to their first, but by the same token, Winking now up alone on the top side. Plenty of time to scale up, to get a couple of those plates. Might just finally get their first item here on the back, and they're in support here. You don't have to be winning for this bot lane at Purdue Northwest, so good plays from Abandoned Kittens, but they just have to keep the momentum going.
Absolutely, but take a look at our Dragon Soul this game. Oh, it's going to be the Mountain Soul. Oh, wait a second. No, it's not. It was a Mountain Dragon that was... What soul is it?
This is what we call Spectator Bug. It is Chemtech Soul.
Chemtech. Okay, so the point that I was about to make is actually the exact opposite. It's going to be the side of the Abandoned Kittens looking over that Chemtech Soul and being, oh, you've got a couple dragons stacked up. Well, that's okay. Doesn't actually matter too much, as it turns out. It's just that little Chemtech Soul is all we have to worry about. So they can continue to play around finding these picks. They can optimize for, continuing to look for gold positive plays as we move into the mid game here and not have to worry about that dragon stacking too much.
I'm not so sure I agree with you, crewman. I think that even if you don't have perhaps the winningest soul here with the Chemtech, it's still incredibly valuable to have the soul because that opens up the possibility for Elder. If you're the side of Abandoned Kittens, you don't want to run the risk of losing Elder and losing the value of this incredibly tanky team that you have. All of that true damage just completely ruins the power here. Sinner's caught out badly.
He sure is. Yeah, he's just going to get taken down. There's too much CC. Is Doubtful starting that one off with the knock-up with the 3-talon strike, and the rest of the team had plenty of CC to follow up on that one. Sinner just ended up being a little bit out of position.
Oh, no.
Root over the wall, the Encore connects, and there's that CC I was just talking about. It's layered beautifully, and it's going to be Purdue Northwest picking up 2 quick kills and looking to take control in this game.
Yeah, 2 quick kills. They're going to pick up the remaining 3 grubs here. That's a ton of pushing power here in the side lanes. Sets them up nicely for the Rift Herald as well as, yeah, Prank might just be able to take this. But Hope is roaming down.
Hope is here. Yes, the Aatrox is in the World Ender, and no passive, I don't think, still on Shippuden. But Hope there with the damage, able to take down the Aatrox, and that will be something back for the side of the Kittens. Unfortunately, we did just crest the 14-minute mark, so that second batch of grubs actually did just despawn. Nobody was able to pick those up, but the side of Purdue will be able to claim this Rift Herald for their troubles.
At the end of the day, though, crewman, we're sitting here with 1,000 gold deficit. With this tower going down, it's going to be even less. This is still an incredibly close game as Riverside, not again, my friend.
Forced to flash away back underneath his tier 1 turret. Doubtful taking a good amount of damage, but not having to use his own flash. That is the shove onto Toponer, but with the minions taking the turret aggro, the Senna's going to be totally fine.
I understand the use of the Rift Herald there, because if you pick off Riverside, you are able to get the second charge off. You really take control of that map, but having it fail feels so bad here, crewman, because that's a ton of damage and a ton of push pressure that just got wasted on a 3/4 health turret there.
Yeah, I mean, at least the turret is pretty low, so if at any point, the side of Purdue are able to get numbers and push in that mid lane, they should be able to take it down relatively easily, but that could be easier said than done. We are 40 seconds out on our first Chemtech Dragon, and we can see here, the side of the Abandoned Kittens, like you were saying earlier, Ox, do really want to defend against this Dragon stacking, despite the fact that it is just a Chemtech Soul. They do have full control right now over this bot side river, and now we have to see if the side of Purdue are going to be able to force themselves in, or if they have other plans in mind.
Full control over the bot river, and more importantly, pretty full vision control over this blue buff jungle of Purdue. It's very hard for Red Team to walk into this river right now without being detected. And as you can see, Purdue is perfectly happy to just seed this Drake. They want to put the pressure elsewhere and try and pull Abandoned Kittens away from that. And it looks like in the absence of an actual response here from ABK, they're just going to get more pressure on this top side.
Yeah, it does appear to be the call coming out from Purdue. Although with Shippuden here to defend, they're not really able to threaten this top lane tier 2 all that much. It looks like it's just going to be a Chemtech Dragon going over pretty much for free.
And for free, but oh so slowly here, finally knocking that down. And Crewman, I don't know, it just feels like Abandoned Kittens are taking these calls a little bit slow. Like, yeah, they finally got a Drake, but it took them 17 minutes to put themselves in a position with a heavily winning bot lane where they could take that Drake at all.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the objective focus from the side of Purdue was very strong in that early game. You know, it was very close, as we already mentioned. It was back and forth. You know, obviously, for the most part, it was hope with the pressure in that bottom side. But we did also see that one window where the Varus did get taken down off the back of that botched turret dive. That was, I believe, when Purdue were able to pick up their second dragon earlier on this game. So, you know, I do take your point, you know, that the side of Abandoned Kittens, it feels like they should have been able to get a little bit more given how strong the Varus and Rel were in that bot lane. But, you know, Purdue, ultimately, they just had the right members in the right place, the right time, and they had the objective control so far in this one. We'll have to see how that next Chemtech Dragon ends up breaking down.
Yeah, the game's starting to get to a little bit of an idle state here for the next couple of minutes. Just falling into that 1-3-1. Everybody knows that this is exactly the way that you wait in modern League of Legends. You let everybody farm, you pretend that the enemy team isn't there. No kills, no kind of craziness, just maybe a little bit of vision if you can, but otherwise, it's all about those timers. And right now, 90 seconds to the first Baron here, crewman. There's some great pressure around it by PNW, so it's going to be a lot of pressure to not get caught out like Hope did there in the lead up.
Really close call. Yeah, the Varus all alone right now underneath the tier 1, and this is what I was mentioning. Oh, there's the engage, though. Not alone anymore. It's Sinner going in with the Magnet Storm on to 3, but the Rel, the follow-up just isn't quick enough. There's the Keeper's Verdict to knock a couple members away, but the Rel's already been taken down. It's shipping and bouncing around, trying to get towards that backline. Not quite able to do it, though. It's doubtful. In fact, who's looking to take down the Varus? He's not quite able to do it, though. It's Prank, who's able to finish the job, a trade back at least onto the Zin's out, but now it's Azir. He's going for the scoop, but he's going to find the rest of those Abandoned Kittens, and he's going to take them straight into the shelter. And that is going to be the side of Purdue picking up 4 for 1 team fight in the mid lane. They're going to take the tier 2 turret as well.
Yeah, crewman, I'm pretty confused. I thought we were watching League of Legends, but that was football with that beautiful scoop and score there from Klexo. Absolutely incredible to finish off that fight, which looked for a minute as if the Abandoned Kittens could pull it out. Hope dancing on the edge of life and death, but just barely. Not enough gas in the tank. And this is starting to see those problems that we saw and foretold in the early game with this Azir getting so far ahead. That gives you the opportunity to make those plays, be aggressive like that, and take out the enemy team. If he wasn't so far ahead, if Riverside wasn't so far behind, you wouldn't be able to see that scoop work nearly as well as it did.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, even the Dark Seal stacks we can see starting to get built up here for Klexo. But I think that's a great point, right? I think the Talia being behind is extremely critical here. You know, I even called coming out of the drafting phase that, you know, damage seems like it's going to be a little bit light for the side of the Abandoned Kittens. And, you know, with this 2-carry comp, if one of your carries didn't really get off the ground coming out of the laning phase, then it's all down to this Varus. And it's so easy as a carry with, you know, such limited mobility. It's so easy for the side of Purdue to just kind of jump onto that one threat and take him out of the fight.
Yeah, and especially when Sinner goes down so early on. Yeah, you've got plenty of zone with Poppy and Zac on top of you, but you start losing members, and you look at what PNW has. They have the Aatrox getting on top of you. They have the Xin Zhao going in hard. They have the Azir who can scoop you to infinity and back. You need all the peel you can get. It is a house of cards here, and cards can be very, very resistant to change, but the moment you pull one, ABK's game plan starts to go out of the window. They're going to need to be, again, more intentional with how they approach these fights, especially now that they're down 4,000 gold here, staring down the face of a Baron, staring down the face of the fourth Drake of the game. They can't lose more fights, more objectives here if they want to take game one.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be Riverside at about a full item behind in that mid lane to Clixo's Azir. In the top lane, we are relatively even in terms of itemization. The Aatrox, of course, going to be a bigger threat. Oh, there's the charge. Does manage to get the Senna into the wall. And that's a nice pick for the side of the Abandoned Kittens. Into the backline goes Ship, and he finds the knockback onto the Seraphine and the Jin Zhao. The Crescent Guard comes out, but it's not quite enough to save his bot carry. And now it's the Abandoned Kittens that have managed to find themselves a couple of quick pickoffs. And now they could look towards the Baron.
Yeah, this is a little bit scary for PNW, but look at who they took out of this fight. It's just the Seraphine Senna, so Abandoned Kitten still has to be very careful about a potential steal here. Doubtful moving in, has Prank to help run interference. 5k now, the Baron looking for it is Doubtful.
They're just going to burn it down. Doubtful not able to get into the pit, though. It's the Poppy W, the steadfast presence, will deny the steal attempt from the Purdue jungler. At least for PNW, they do manage to put themselves on Soul Point with that Chemtech Dragon being secured. But ultimately, I think we have to say that that was a nice sequence from the Kittens.
Yeah, absolutely. They got what they needed out of it, and they were able, even with the small miss of the Keeper's verdict onto Doubtful, to secure that Baron. That's huge. That gives you pushing power. That gives you time here to let Riverside get back into the game, having completed their second item, looking for the third. Klexo is ahead and has 9 stacks on that Dark Seal, but still not invincible just yet. So, very, very close game yet.
Absolutely. Now we really need to see, I think, the Abandoned Kittens, they need to get a lot of value with this Baron buff, right? They did manage to close the gold differential somewhat. We're down to a little under 3k now is the difference between the two teams. But given the fact that they're up against this Soul Point, you were just saying earlier that once that Soul is taken, with the Elder Dragon coming onto the map, that's when things could start to look really, really dangerous for the side of the Abandoned Kittens. So they need to get some significant map control, I think, with this Baron buff to really make that trade that we just saw worthwhile.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit concerned about that. As we look at this roster, who's going to be your split push threat? Zac isn't exactly known for fast split pushing. Riverside is so far behind that just about anyone can match him, so a lot of your push damage is entirely wrapped up in Hope here. So they only have one lane of push. They're going to get a turret here, but it's going to be in trade for a deeper turret on the other side of the map. This is a base race almost here, crewman.
Well, Shippuden is going to be able to fly in here to try and defend this tier 2. Doubtful is not deterred, though. It is actually going to continue, and will take this one down. Even has the mid laner down here to assist as well. I guess the call from Purdue is, we're not really interested in trying to defend against this Baron push when we can trade evenly on the other side of the map against the team with Baron. That's going to feel pretty good, but now things are looking a little bit better for the Abandoned Kittens. They are able to get more thanks to the power of the Baron buff. They have broken into the base, and they will take down this top lane inhibitor, which could be critically important. The next dragon spawning in 2.5 minutes time.
Yeah, that'll be some great pressure. Gonna force either Klexo or Prank to be sitting up here. And while it doesn't feel like too long in the grand scheme of things, those 4.5 seconds while teleport is ticking down are an eternity in team fights like this. You need to be so on the ball with predicting what's gonna happen, and more importantly, and right now for PNW, this isn't a problem with the wards they have, but if Abandoned Kittens are able to get through that red buff jungle and clear those out, make it impossible for there to be a good TP destination for whoever's up there split pushing, it becomes very, very difficult for you to have an impact on this upcoming fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could even see the side of Purdue elect to just give away the next dragon. Potentially, if they feel like the setup for the team fight is not really in their favor. As we already discussed, they do have some really strong scaling elements here in this composition. So giving over one more individual Chemtech Dragon to your opponents probably wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, not at all, especially when you're gunning for that Elder. But by the same token here, when you give time to this Abandoned Kittens team, you're giving time for Riverside to become more relevant. Giving time for them to scale up, and giving time for Hope to become even more of a problem here. building towards some bulk to finish out their build here on the Varus. It's not great. As on the other side of the map, though, Klexo is going to get a turret just because.
My
Why not?
goodness. Yeah, Purdue in their side lanes this game, they really feel passionately about, making sure that those side lane turrets are not forgotten about. But their own top tier 2 is going to get taken down here. The Azir will be able to trade that one back, or it was already taken, I guess, on that bottom side of or the top side of the map, rather, for the Abandoned Kittens. But still, I mean, I guess we're just witnessing the side of the Abandoned Kittens get more off the map, right? They're able to get a lot of control off the back of that Baron push. They obviously don't have the Baron buff anymore, but they are in a much better state now than they were previously to that Baron being taken.
I'm not so sure they are, crewman. It's still a 2,000 gold deficit. They don't have the pressure of that top lane, and ow,
Moving
Sinner's
in,
caught.
team fight breaking out. That is going to be the knock up onto the Rel. Rel could be the first couch for this fight, but Doubtful is in a little bit of a tricky position as well. Does have the Crescent guard to create a little bit of space, buy some time for the team to follow up. But now flashing forward, back into the mid lane, reuniting
Hope's
with his
already
very
gone.
fed Azir. Klexo is going low, manages to get a little bit of a shield, though, from the shifting sands, and the Zack's not able to make it happen by himself. Shippuden taken down, and it's going to be the Abandoned Kittens absolutely routed in the team fight once again. At least the shove will keep Riverside and Sinner alive, but they're going to be forced to retreat back towards their fountain.
Crewman, I think
and it's
this is
going to
the
be
game.
Purdue at Northwest on the warpath. They could look for it right here, alls. The mid inhibitor at least will be going down. They've got Poppy in about 10 seconds. Our Riverside and Sinner able to hold the line at the Nexus turrets. The minion wave needs to get taken down. It's Doubtful going straight onto the Talia underneath these Nexus turrets. The first one already down. The minion wave has not been cleared. The Nexus in their sights. And Purdue University Northwest will take their first win of OQ number 2.
And technically an upset here as they were the lower seed. But boy, crewman, was that last fight a doozy. Klexo so low on the top side of that, but with the scoop, able to buy just enough time for Hope to go down. And, it's like the old saying goes, without hope you have nothing, and this Varus, all the resources on him, was really all that the Abandoned Kittens had.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't even really see what eventually took Hope down in that last team fight. I was mostly keeping my eyes on the Jin Zhao. But was the Varus actually in the mid lane? Was that where Doubtful jumped to?
Yes, Varus was up there, was deep in onto Klexo, had him down to about 200 health when the Emperor's Divide came down, but just didn't quite have enough gas in the tank to get back onto him after Doubtful got up there.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty messy, honestly, that last fight, but it's exactly how Jin Zhao and the rest of Purdue wanted it to be, right? Break that fight up and start picking people off one by one, especially when you are the team with the gold lead, right? You're able to sort of clinically execute one target at a time in that sort of fight. And ultimately, I think the scaling did come into play a little bit there towards the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a great way to start for PNW. You have the scaling, you're able to win in the early game and win late. It gives you a lot of momentum here moving forward to try and pick up another win early on day one. Make day two very easy since you'll only have to pick up one game to qualify for groups.
Yeah, absolutely. Could look really good for them. Of course, the Abandoned Kittens, they were able to keep it pretty competitive, right? They did eventually have some pretty good macro calls down the stretch to keep that gold relatively close and give themselves some angles to try and get back into this game. But of course, in the end, not quite enough. But I think it's safe to say that we do have more to see from them, going forward in the rest of this OQ.
Yeah, absolutely. Any final thoughts here before we close out round one here on Running the Rift 3?
Not really. I mean, it was definitely a close battle between these two teams. Ultimately, I think maybe the Abandoned Kittens not going for the Senna on that B1 pick. Maybe, something that they regret in hindsight, potentially. Or maybe they do feel like it was really more just down to the gameplay, not a mind reader, of course. But, Senna, I have honestly just been of the opinion for a while that this champion is just really strong. And, with teams at higher levels of play sort of subscribing to that recently, I think that is going to be a pick to look out for going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to see how much that's picked up through the rest of round one and moving forward through the rest of the rounds. But for now, crewman, I think it's time for us to step aside for just a few minutes here as we figure out who we're going to be covering for round two of these OQs. But go ahead, change the channel. We've got a whole bunch of Running the Rift crews all across the Twitch gamut. Running the Rift A and B are running as well as a series of team Twitches all across the interwebs, CCG, Blue Water League, Clown, you name it, Running the Rift is casting it. We'll be back for game two here in a little bit, so we'll see you guys then.